As we get started this morning, we'll begin with our hymn of welcome, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Good morning. Welcome to the online service of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. We're so glad that you're able to join us this morning, and together in this community, we can ensure that social distancing does not mean social disconnect. Our weekly services are more than a gathering of our physical bodies. It is a forming of a sacred time we make together. Whether you're well-versed in the technology of teleconferencing or this is your first venture, we do welcome you. Whatever the faith, traditions of your past, whatever your theological stance, whatever your heritage, whoever you are, whomever you love, we welcome you. You can learn more about us on our website and Facebook page. We encourage you to share our Facebook page, reach out to others who may be isolated at this time and who might benefit from the spiritual connection that is typically available by walking through our door on Sunday morning. Our announcements, if we have some. Yes, so one of the announcements I'd like to share with you is that Sequoia Low is welcoming all between the ages of 18 and 25, although he has said all are welcome. It's conversation, spirituality, and social action. Every Sunday, 12 p.m., I believe this is starting again. So Sequoia had been running this and he is beginning it again. Religious education classes for children and youth take place on Zoom every Sunday. 11:30 a.m. is RE for families. I'm not contact Sierra Marie for more information. The Tuesday afternoon cafe will not be as it had been. It's going to have a little shift in personalities. So Paula Hopewell and Margaret Henderson will be leading the COVID-19 check-in and spoken milestones as of this coming Tuesday, May 5th at 4 p.m. It's a change of time from 5:30. It's a lovely cafe, so please come and join in a Zoom square. It's a good connection. So it's so good to be here. It's a little odd, I must say. There are online guidelines. I'm trying to get into my square here. And please read those for your understanding. I think one of the more important things, in all honesty, is the chat. And if you have it in the center of your screen, you could move it over to the side. If you can just configure it, looking at those lower places where you can push a button. I know there was some concern about it being straight center, and you can move it over and you can chat privately or to all of us together. So that's that. Hello, my name is Melody Levy. I am the president of the board of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. And I'm happy to say that UUCD has been my home for many, many years. It was the barn, it is the ridge, and when I was here as a young mother looking for a place to bring my children, I came to the barn to build a home, and that is what I've been doing for many years. I've come and gone sometimes because I worked distances away, but I've always returned. And as I have said to my own children, you can always return. You always have a home there, and that's the beauty. They haven't always agreed with me, but they know that anywhere they can find a Unitarian congregation, Unitarian Universalist congregation that will welcome them home. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about gardening because it's that time of year and it's something that brings me joy, but there has been all kinds of reasons why I wouldn't do it again. So for 28 years, I lived in one house in Bethel and I grew perennials. And they take a long time to grow and bloom. They get more beautiful every year. They die back, they come. So they're hardy and, all winter they're quiet, then they come back bigger and better, returning year after year. And it's safe to say that their cycles resembles our cycles in terms of birth and growth, maturation, decay. I had beautiful gardens, and I didn't know how brokenhearted I was until the new owner of my home, that was no longer my home, called me and he said, I just love gardening in your gardens. And I broke down and I realized, oh my God, I left my gardens behind. So I've refrained. I haven't picked up a shovel. I haven't looked at the dirt. I walk right past it and I go, I'm over gardening. Well, it turns out that you can get over a broken heart, and I didn't realize that I was abstaining from being a gardener. So all of this sheltering in place has brought about growing home. I'm home. And there's sadness and anger and fear and confusion and today. So I've realized that gardening for me is how I make a sacred space for myself. It's one of the ways. It's one of the altars in my life is gardening. And it's an act of optimism. when you put a seed in the ground, you're putting hope in the ground and you're trusting in the future. So the short of it is that I have begun to fall in love again. I'm gardening and I'm allowing myself the joy of being here, of growing my home again. So when that gentleman calls me and talks to me about the gardens, I'm going to tell him about my gardens also. And we're going to celebrate together. So with that being said, I would like to invite Reverend Heather to offer opening words.
Thank you, Melody. I love that. Gardening is an act of optimism. Good morning, everyone. It is good to be with you today. Whatever physical space you are in today and however you're feeling in it, it is a holy place through the intention you put into it and the energy you bring to it. Take a few moments right now to notice yourself, your body in space, taking inventory through your senses. What do you see beyond the frame of your digital screen this morning? What is calling to your eyes? What sounds do you hear around you? And what have you heard this morning? Our older child said to me this morning, "The birds woke me up this morning. They were so loud." What sounds are filling your ears and lingering in the music of your mind? What are you tasting? What tastes bring you awake in the morning? What are you savoring? What do you smell? I woke up to the very particular smell this morning of a stew hen having simmered overnight in the crock pot. We got a stew hen from our CSA, our Community Supported Agriculture Share. And it is a smell that kind of settles down into everything, I discovered. Not in a bad way, but in a very pervasive way. The whole main floor of our house smells like the stew hen. So the only smell I can think of inside my house this morning is of that hen, but outside it seems to smell wonderfully like lilac throughout my neighborhood. I love finding the lilac all around. What do you smell? And in this time when what we touch is both so significant and so absent, what touch brings you comfort? What are you enjoying touching in these days of distancing? Neurologist Dr. Antonio Damasio has observed that our brains cannot be grounded in reality without our bodies. It is through our bodies that we know what is real. Let us then connect with the real here in this online but still actual shared space today. Come, let us experience focusing our collective attention, all our senses. Let us focus those senses and let us worship together. Now let us each hold our chalice up. I have to grab mine so that others can see it for a moment if you have one nearby, and then take a minute to light your chalice. And after a few quiet breaths, we'll say the chalice lighting words together. You can add the smell of sulfur to your smells this morning. Join me in the chalice lighting words. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another, and to celebrate life. Could all the children, kids, and youth, as you are willing and able, come forward now so that we can see you first and foremost on our screens. A special treat today, Julie Tramontana, who grew up in this congregation, will lead us in the children's affirmation today.
Hi, everyone. Put your U's high up in the sky. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands.
Thank you so much, Julie. I have a special book to share with you this morning. It's from Flamingo Rampant Press, and I felt a little hesitant about sharing Flamingo Rampant Press books because they're very small press, and I really don't want to violate copyright whatsoever. So if you are at all inclined to go to their website, flamingorampant.com, consider ordering their books for your family or the families you know and love in your life. They are a GLBTQ inclusive children's book press and mindfully inclusive in all sorts of other ways as well. And just a really wonderful addition to any library, any home library. This book in particular took me a little while, but that's the thing with children's books. You often get to read them many times, and it took me many times to finally get it. It tells the story of one child who keeps getting the message from mostly the adults in their life that they're different from others and that that's somehow not okay. Until one night the moon comes in the form of a rabbit and takes Nandy on a journey to visit each of the unique and particular astronomical bodies of our solar system. And Nandy soaks in that each of our planets and the sun is wonderful precisely because of its unique qualities. This book was written with the input of scientists, so the facts about the planets are all based on actual research. Nandy, why don't we cut your hair? But Nandy liked their long hair. Nandy, why don't we let your hair grow? But Nandy liked their short hair. Nandy, why do you like to be different? But Nandy didn't like to be different. Nandy liked to be Nandy. Nandy liked to dance. Nandy liked to read. Nandy liked to twirl and be big. Nandy liked to hide and be small. And Nandy liked the moon, for the moon never asked, Nandy. The moon would be dark, then crescent, grow full, then back again. On some nights, the moon seemed almost still. On others, the moon would wander all across the sky. Every night, Nandy wished to meet the moon, and one night the moon wished to meet Nandy back. That night, Nandy woke up. Before them was the moon. Let's go on an adventure, the moon said. And Nandy's bed slipped into the moonlight. Upward they went, upward, through the sky. With the moonlight, they floated through their window, past rooftops, trees, and clouds, until they met a dusty, reddish planet, Mars. Mars saw Nandy and said, yes, we're much alike. We're collectors. I collect rocks that fall from the sky. I've kept some for over 4 billion years. Each has its own story. And there are still more stories to find. Nandy searched with this quiet planet, for they were much alike indeed. Outward they went, outward, past asteroids of many sizes and shapes, until they met a great and colorful planet, Jupiter. Jupiter saw Nandy and said, yes, we're much alike. We love brightness and colors and being fabulous. I am a red and orange and white and yellow and twirl like a dancer. And I wear a necklace made of storms. Nandy twirled with this fabulous planet, for they were much alike indeed. Outward they went, outward, until they met a planet with giant rings. On its head was a storm with 6 equal sides. They saw Nandy and said, yes, we're much alike. People think we're peculiar. They ask why I, Saturn, have these rings, why I weigh so little. why a hexagon covers my head, but I don't need to explain because I am just me. Nandi listened to this not so peculiar planet, for they were much alike indeed. Outward they went, outward, until they met a rolling blue-green planet, Uranus. He saw Nandi and said, "Yes, we are much alike. We want to move. I had an accident long ago, but I now roll and slide. I even roll backwards, and my rings are like racing stripes. Aren't they cool?" Nandi raced with this rolling planet, for they were much alike indeed. Outward they went, outward, until they met a faraway planet, blue and cold. They saw Nandi and said, "Yes, we're much alike. We're travelers. When I was young, I was thrown from home. At first I was lonely, but I've made friends that twirl and tumble, sparkle and spin. Wherever I go, I'm never alone." Nandi befriended this traveling planet, for they were much alike indeed. After Neptune, Nandi wanted to go further, for there was so much more. But then Nandi yawned. The moon nudged Nandi. It's time to go back. So inward they went, toward a tiny light. Inward, toward a tiny light that grew larger and larger and larger until they met the sun. The star looked at Nandi and said, "I see you're visiting my children. Aren't they precious? Each is different, yet I hold them all dear." Nandi was grateful to the sun, for the star held Nandi dear as well. Then away from the sun they went, away, until they met a fast and tiny planet. Nandi said hello, but she darted behind the sun. "That one is playful, but shy, and she loves being close to home," said the moon. Nandi darted about with the shy little planet Mercury, for they were much alike indeed. Away from the sun they went, away, until they met a bright planet with neither colors nor rings. She said nothing, for she was fast asleep. Nandi watched her, Venus, glowing in the sun's light, safely wrapped within a blanket of clouds. Nandi wrapped themselves in their blanket and closed their eyes with this sleeping planet, for they were much alike indeed. Away from the sun they went, away, until they met the planet of Nandi's home, Earth, and Nandi's bed slipped into the moonlight. Downward they went, downward through the sky. With the moonlight, they floated past clouds, trees, rooftops, through their window, until they came to rest inside. Nandi thanked the moon, and the moon thanked Nandi back. Nandi dreamed of their adventure, of the planets they met, quiet, fabulous, not so peculiar, rolling, traveling, circling around the sun, shy and asleep. And Nandi loved them all, for they were very much alike indeed. That's The Great Space Adventure by Rika Aoki and Kai Steele from Flamingo Rampant Press. We're going to sing with our children in the spirit of our congregation now, "This Little Light of Mine." Please join me.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, it shine. Everywhere I do not go, I'm gonna send my light. Everywhere I do not go, I'm gonna send my light. Everywhere I do not go, I'm gonna send my light. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Even when online, I'm gonna let it shine. Even when online, I'm gonna let it shine. Even when online, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
You are now invited to write in the chat your milestones, the personal news of your life that is either weighing you down or lifting up your heart this morning. Let me begin by sharing the sad news that long-time UUCD member Jean Rengillian died on Friday morning, May 1st, at Sharon Health Center from COVID-19. Her sons Bob and Dave welcome your cards and kind thoughts at Jean's Maplewood address in Newtown. There are no plans for a service at this time due to the pandemic restrictions. We'll keep you posted if that changes. We will all deeply miss Jean's warm smile and incredibly gracious, good-hearted nature. Please take some time now to write your own milestones in the chat and scroll through and take in one another's.
morning, everyone. Well, this is certainly a time of financial uncertainty for everyone. And because of that, many of us have had to change and adjust the way that we give. If you are someone at this time that can increase your offering, then you may balance out for those of us who may need to decrease ours. Whichever the case is true for you this morning, let's give as we are able, particularly on this beautiful, beautiful spring morning. There are several ways for you to send in your offering. Sherry has put it up on our screen. You can send directly to Clapboard Ridge through the mail. You can also download the Simple Giving app and send your gift that way. Sherry is going to put the link for the online giving into the chat box, and that's a very easy way to do it. As we consider this time, let's also remember our food banks, because they are certainly in dire need, and you can make your offering there at arcforpeace.org. So whichever way and whatever amount, let's all recognize that in this time we are supporting each other, and we are lucky to have this congregation, and we are lucky to have each other. Now, if you would join me, please, in the dedication of our offerings with our congregational response. In the spirit of compassion and service, we dedicate these, our offerings. And now let us enjoy the beautiful music that's going to be provided this morning by Marian DeFabio.
All the way from Florida. Thank you so much, Marion. One of the wild, wonderful blessings of this bizarre time, getting to have Marion play piano for us. Published in the Irish Times in mid-April, here is a poem by Dublin-based poet John O'Donnell titled When. And when this ends, we will emerge shyly, and then all at once, dazed, long-haired, as we embrace loved ones the shadow spared, and weep for those it gathered in its shroud. A kind of rapture, this longed for laying on of hands, high cries as we nuzzle, leaning in to kiss, and whisper that now things will be different. Although a time will come when we'll forget the curve's approaching wave, the hiss and sigh of ventilators, the crowded makeshift morgues. A time when we may even miss the old world arm's length courtesy, small kindnesses left on doorsteps, the drifting idle days, and nights when we flung open all the windows to arias in the darkness, our voices reaching out, holding each other till this passes. John O'Donnell, When. My mother sent me this poem by old school mail in the way that she has sent me mail for years, in the way that apparently Jim Walsh did for his loved ones, an envelope of clippings that sometimes I've had time to go through, sometimes not so much. But this particular poem caught my eye, and I kept thinking of it. Even as the strangeness of this time is acknowledged, the timeless physical nature of our humanness is also woven into every line. It is our voices that hold each other these days. Our words trying to make up for what being in one another's physical company would previously have conveyed. Like right now, how I've become accustomed to trying to make eye contact with you all by looking at the green dot on my laptop. That's where you are in some strange way on the other side of what on my screen looks like a green dot. I have tried and tried to get our 3-year-old to look at the green dot, you know, when I'm taking a picture, she's talking to our grandparents and she's just like, what are you even talking about? They're there on the other side of the green dot. It is so contrary to our human natures, this gathering only in online spaces. The same 3-year-old had her first nursery school gathering this past week after a month and a half of not seeing her classmates at all. And apparently one of her besties in class had been talking about and looking forward to the gathering for hours and hours, talking about it the night before when she was getting ready to go to bed. But when her little friend arrived to the Zoom room gathering, she burst into tears and left the screen. And apparently, I mean, her parents muted the camera, but apparently she was screaming at the top of her lungs and leaving us all to hypothesize if she had been thinking that she would actually get to be in the same room with her friends when they said, you're going to see your friends in the Zoom room tomorrow. What is it about the way that we adults speak about our meetings in online rooms that completely and understandably confounds the 3-year-olds listening? They just don't get it, and understandably, right? Most of us are struggling in some manner with all of these new ways of being. I, for one, desperately miss going to the public library and finding a quiet corner to think and write. My family was talking last night about what's something you really miss, or what's something you look forward to getting back to. And I was like, the library, the library, the library. I wrote much of this reflection on a stone ledge on the side of a fairly quiet street in a little notepad this past Friday afternoon, hoping it wouldn't rain and compel me home again sooner than the window of time that I had for thinking, sitting, breathing, and walking by myself. I was elated to find a place to sit, a place that was not a public park or a playground bench, technically dangerous to touch and closed to the public anyway, but also not right outside my own home where at any moment I could get pulled into whatever seems like an emergency to a 3-year-old or a 7-year-old or a grown-up temporarily solo parenting a 3-year-old or a 7-year-old, which is to say, in terms of what could seem like an emergency, anything and everything. There was another time, and this was my ledge right here, this picture. Thanks to Chris for showing the pictures I sent along for some fun visuals. That was my ledge. I sat on that ledge for like an hour. It was so great. There was another time, was that just last week when the other residents of my home had gone for a walk and I didn't realize it. And I came upstairs from the basement and the house was empty, except for me and a lot of clutter, of course. I shouted, "Family, hello," just to confirm that I was alone in the house. And it was almost magical, like they'd temporarily evaporated or been beamed up to the mothership or something. I shouted again, really just for fun, "Hello!" And then it is possible that I may have washed my hands for just 14 seconds instead of 20, since for a change, no one was watching or modeling exactly what I was doing. We are each having our own surreal moments and crazy, silly experiences of this strange time. And there is really only so much we can convey through Zoom screens, phone lines, email, and old-fashioned but lovely correspondence. What will it be like to someday sit and have lunch with you again? I truly look forward to that. In the meantime, we live out our own realities, suspended a bit like science class specimens, each in our own jar. We are tasked for now with trying to better understand ourselves during this time. I was thinking I was doing just fine and really didn't need anything, thank you, until my birthday when our older kid came up to me at the kitchen sink. I seem to almost always either be at this laptop or at the kitchen sink. And she said, "Come on outside, Mama H, there's a surprise for you." And it was indeed a surprise because I had poo-pooed a birthday car parade as awkward and totally unnecessary. And then just seeing a few of our local friends' faces in person with their car windows rolled down, even on that chilly day, looking tired and harried, unshowered and oddly dressed, just like me, stepping out of the house, just seeing their faces in real space, even those I had seen on Zoom in the past week, just seeing their smiles and annoyed kids in the back seat brought tears springing up to my eyes. What is that mysterious quality of being in person that so many of us are missing right now, or trying to convince ourselves that we're doing okay without? Alexander Chowker, a physician researcher who studies stress immunology at the University of Munich, has seen radical changes in the bodies of people participating in simulations of manned spaceflight missions like Mars 500. In one such study, 6 participating study subjects were placed in a simulated spaceship en route to Mars for 520 consecutive days. The 6 people were young and trained and not in a condition of real threat, Chowker said, and still the pure fact of their being confined affected them. If you change your environment in an extreme way, it is changing you. Participants, some of whom were only isolated for 3 months, still experienced changes to their sleep, changes to their immune, endocrine, and neurocognitive systems, and alterations to their metabolisms. And they didn't even leave planet Earth. Being confined and isolated affects the human physiology as a whole, Chowker says. My own body has become quite vocal in demanding me, I thought, to stop doing something. Stop sleeping on that old mattress, I thought at first, a few weeks into this quarantine. Then I thought it was stop sitting on the couch or the bed with your left leg tucked under you for hours on end, making a little laptop table for my laptop. Okay, I'll stop. Then as the back and hip pain became pretty much constant and almost intolerable, I decided it was almost certainly stop looking at your laptop computer screen at all in any position, standing or sitting. It's the computer's fault. That being entirely impractical for my life right now, I begrudgingly scheduled a telemedicine appointment with my doctor. Now, because this is not all about or just about me, please humor me and take a moment right now to think to yourself about what you would or will ask your doctor or preferred healthcare provider about when you next get to speak with them. What's the thing that you might ask them? Just note it to yourself. And what do you expect they will say back to you? How will they advise you? Perhaps take a moment to jot that wisdom down if it's coming up as clear as a bumper sticker or a neon sign for you. I probably ought to have been able to predict, but didn't, that my doctor would not advise me to stop doing anything I was doing and have just mentioned. They didn't even blame me for hoisting the 3-year-old up when she begs. Instead, my doctor urged me to start doing something again. Start moving, they said. 5,000 to 10,000 steps a day minimum, and you don't even need a Fitbit if you have a smartphone. They mostly keep track of it for us, disturbingly. And that is really how I ended up writing this sermon on that stone ledge. Colombian American writer Marie Southard Ospina observes, experiencing heightened anxiety at difficult moments in our lives is totally understandable. When we feel out of control, like when the world as we know it is upended, we often put added pressure or focus onto our bodies because it feels like they are one of the few things we still have at least some power over. An intuitive eating coach, yes, that's a profession, Carolina Guizar counsels, I am a believer in the body knowing exactly what it needs to do, even in times of crisis. If we take a moment to acknowledge what we need and focus on what we can control, then we have the space to listen to our emotions and our bodies, Guizar says. This may mean we need to slow down, move our bodies less or sometimes more, eat consistently, eat foods that connect us to happy memories. If any body changes as a result of these things, they are morally neutral, not good or bad changes. They just are. Once in a while, we minister types get to write sermons or reflections that are basically what we ourselves need to work through and hear. This has been one such week for me. My body has been a wreck. Scratch that. My body has felt more vulnerable, more unpredictable, more human, not unlike many other aspects of life since this quarantine got going. More vulnerable, more unpredictable, more human. It is through our bodies that we know and experience all that is really going on in our world. According to neurologist Dr. Antonio Damasio, the body is the ground reference for reality. And the mind has first to be about the body. That is the mind's first preoccupation, is how is this body doing in which I am housed and which it is my responsibility to maintain. Neither brain nor body interacts with the environment alone without the participation of the other. Even within our own single human beingness, we are ourselves an interconnected web of existence. Dr. Damasio's 21st century cartography of the brain shows that while various parts of the brain, such as the amygdala, the thalamus, the hypothalamus, or the pituitary, may have different functions, they do not simply act upon one another's results. They are interacting all along the way, sharing information and reaction, and in conversation with one another about what is real, what is a perceived threat, how am I doing? Though we may seem to one another and even sometimes to ourselves like we have morphed into being solely talking heads on screens, we are anything but. The rest of us still matters. Our whole physical selves need our attention. We are each so much more than shows up in our 9x6 rectangles or whatever size your screen is. Our lives depend on us remembering this, our whole human beings. Even or especially in these surreal times, I am grateful to be a human body in connection with other humans and this resilient earth. I am deeply grateful to be able to read the words of scientists and columnists and doctors and poets. The words of John O'Donnell that my mother sent in the old school mail reflect this international connection, sent to me by my mother in Washington State, over 3,000 miles to the west, written by the poet from his own quarantine experience, another 3,000 miles east, traveling by many human hands around our shared globe, giving me hope that indeed we will emerge shyly, dazed, long-haired, as we embrace loved ones the shadow spared. A kind of rapture, this longed for laying on of hands. The drifting, idle days we may miss, the nights when we flung open all the windows, our voices reaching out, holding each other till this passes. Our voices holding each other till this passes. For now, let us be grateful for all the ways we can still connect, though so much is not the same at all. Let us be grateful for all that still holds us together, including our own physical bodies, keeping us grounded to this earth, helping us to know and to feel all this that is still so beautiful and so real. May it be so. Take a moment now to close your eyes, to feel your body breathing you into each next moment. Find the ground under your feet if that's available to you. Join me if you'd like in the Unitarian Universalist meditation on breathing. The low part, the drone, starts out like this. Breathe in. Breathe out. The middle part is a nice repeated line. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. The high part is just barely within my reach, but for some of you it will sound beautiful, lifting up the eyes and the shoulders and filling your home. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Once more. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Some part of this, or all three parts, is lovely to walk with as you walk your neighborhood streets, or to think in your mind when you're having trouble falling asleep, or to sing to your child when they're screaming, even if they really don't want to hear it, just to model some kind of calmingness during these strange times. Join me in another breath of silence, and then we will all sing together with Jerry, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Let us each extinguish our chalices now, and then join together in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. I carry you all with me. Our closing hymn, Open the Window, is ever so slightly tricky, so I invite you to listen to Jerry singing it, especially the verses, the first few times through. Jerry and I are aware that this strange forum for gathering together means we can teach songs a little more easily because you can hear him clearly over other people singing in our separate homes. So soak that in and savor the encouraging words of this song inspired by the Georgia Sea Islands spiritual Heist the Window, Noah. Open the window.
Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Mama and Papa are fighting like snakes. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Baby is a crying like her heart will break. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Neighbors lock their doors, build fences so high. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Jonesy was discovered on the other side. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Borders round countries, borders round the sky. Open the window, let the dove fly in. The only border close you is the border around your mind. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Some people have money, some people have none. Open the window, let the dove fly in. What's the use of money if your heart's gone numb? Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, children. Open the window now. Open the window, children. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in. This big old world is a great big mess. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window. window, find peace and rest. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in. Open the window, let the dove fly in.
Thank you so much, Jerry, and to all of you singing along. Love it. The only border that can close you in is the border around your mind. Stretch your body and your spirit this week. Go get offline and out into this beautiful world. Savor all the comforts that nourish you while doing everything you can to bring about greater healing and joy for others. Whatever you can do today to create a more soothing and sensory sacred space for your spirit is worthwhile. Be good to yourselves and to one another. Join us in online fellowship after the service by connecting through the chat. Instructions for that will come up on your screen. Go filled with love, nourished by the peace we've created together here, committed to doing something every day to bring about greater justice in this hurting world. Go in peace.